perimenopausal athletes and beyond, a masterclass series bringing together experts in mindset, nutrition, training, recovery. I am your host, Tennille Hoogland, and I have the beautiful Kate Ripley here today. Thank you for coming on, Kate, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I came to you. Well, let me introduce you. Oh man, how do I introduce you? So Kate is a registered massage therapist, and she is the founder and owner of PR Labs. And we're going to talk a lot about PR Labs because of what Kate is doing with it. That is just so absolutely cool. So we're going to get into that later, but just a little bit of your history is that you actually started on the path to medical school, which is really interesting. And you dug deep into, your education in that way, but then you shifted and you thought, I need something different. Hey,
Yes.
that was a pretty big shift of going, there is another way for me to work in the world. And this is going to be my method. I want to hear about that a little bit more, but before we do that, I'm just going to share, then you've lived all over the United States as well. So Boston originally, then you came to Austin, Texas, and there you met the love of your life. Correct?
Yes. That is correct.
And I
very much so.
Life. And then you came and are now living in Boulder, Colorado, which is through those different transitions. You've always had a massage therapy clinic of various, were they always the same focus, or there's kind of evolution as you probably evolved as well? Hey, as a massage therapist?
I have always been very athletic. I like athletes or active people. And it's always been very medical. So the modality that kind of sums that up and combines those the best is sports massage.
Yeah.
Because active people and athletic people are invested in their health. They see massage as an integral part of their toolbox to keep them healthy and keep them moving.
Yeah.
And that has always been very interesting to me. I always wanted people who saw me as a team member to help them get better, feel better, versus just they come in, they lay down, I rub them, they leave. Right. That's kind of not what excites me.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So here in Boulder, you have taken it to a really fascinating shift, and that is you created the PR Labs.
That's right.
And what I'd like to do is there anything that you want me to share about who you are? You're also an athlete, an avid athlete. You love moving, continue to do so. Is there anything else that I should share about you that you wanted the audience to know?
Well, I do want to offer one correction is I grew up in Nebraska.
Oh,
that was where I was born and raised. And then I kind of bounced around to Arizona and then and then I went to Colorado and ended up going to school here for massage, and then went to Boston and then Austin and now Boulder.
So you really, so you do know the United States of America.
I have moved around. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a great, because then you actually moving is such an education in and of itself. But
Very
I digress. So let's get into the PR Labs. Let's talk about what it is that you have created that is really, I think, quite unique in how do we as athletes look at our recovery, also prevention of injury, all the holistic approach of how do we honor this body so we can keep moving using a team approach.
Right. So PR Labs, which stands for Performance and Recovery Labs, came about after all of my years of working in different massage clinics. Sometimes throughout my career of 20-ish years of working, I have worked by myself as a solo practitioner for years and years to build up my clientele in all the different places I lived. So I would move to a new place, start off as a solo practitioner, spend a year or two building up my practice, and then feel like, wow, I've got enough clients that I could definitely bring on some more people like me, and we could make a bigger practice out of that. And I think one of the things that was always such a reward when I got to that place was the fact that I got to have not only the interaction of other practitioners for me to interact with on a day-to-day basis, because being a solo practitioner can be exceptionally lonely and very just, I don't know, it can be tough because really the only people you're communicating with on a day-to-day basis are your clients, which is lovely, but it's also not exceptionally fulfilling. You don't get a lot of back and forth talking about different injuries, asking questions, having that interaction. So when I got to that point and had the opportunity to work with other practitioners, it was always so wonderful and it felt so good. So PR Labs is kind of a conglomeration of all of this experience, and realizing that most clients are so tired of having to go to, one part of town to see their PT, and then go to another part of town potentially to see like their chiropractor, and relay information between those practitioners. And, it's like a bad game of telephone, right? Where it's like, well, they said it was my shoulder, but I think it's actually my glutes. And, and it just there's a lot that gets lost in translation. And I feel like that really shouldn't be, there's being an advocate for yourself, but then there's also, as a practitioner, we should be able to communicate with each other and be able to connect and be like, discuss different treatments and how we could best work together to treat that athlete, that person, that human being, versus looking at it in such a myopic thing, like, what does my modality do for this person? What would I do? And not looking at the whole picture of like, okay, we've got the structure of the human being. We need to address what's going on there. And then there's soft tissue, which is my area. And then there's strengthening. And then there's the dietary aspect. And then there's the mental aspect, because we are whole people.
Yeah.
And addressing one thing separate over here and one thing separate over here, and never having any kind of communication about that, I just feel like it's not a very economical or effective way to treat someone. So what I've done is I have created a corporation where I've rented a large space in downtown Boulder, beautiful downtown Boulder. And we have outfitted it. It's got treatment rooms. And it's got a gym space that is all brand new. It has a mobility room. It has that we can do like foam rolling and classes and yoga and other workshops and things like that in it. And then we have a gym, and we have personal trainers. We have a PT, we have a chiropractor, we have an acupuncturist, we have sports massage therapists. We have all of these people. And the fun thing about this all is that I run the massage department, as we call it.
Yeah.
But everyone else in PR Labs is their own business. So for example, it's our sports PT is Boulder Sports Physio. So she is Boulder Sports Physio at PR Labs. Our chiropractor is the Chiro Lab at PR Labs. So they run their own schedule, they run their own finances, they do all of their own company, they run their own entity. I really just supply the place and all of that for them.
So it's really athlete centered, is, coming down to it. It's an athlete centered approach in which you and all the other practitioners have bought into this principle of how do we support the athlete as a whole.
Correct.
So let's really hone in on that athlete, and let's talk about who these athletes are and why, what you're seeing, because what I want to get to, and this is the point that I really want to hone in on, is how do we as athletes at the end of the day, how do we think of using different recovery modalities for our health, so prevention of injury, for our recovery. So how to, recovery from training. So that would be in the health field, but also if we have an injury, how to recover from it. So my question is really, I want to center in on how do the different modalities actually work together, and who it, like, is it for all of us? Is it for, like, when do we come in? Are we injured, or are, yeah, some just different ways of thinking about how do we think about recovery modalities generally, and then for you.
Okay, so I get this question quite a bit, is people will, clients will write in on our contact us page
Yeah.
and say, I've got something going on, I don't know what it is, and I don't know where to start.
Mhm.
And I, most 9 out of 10 times, unless they can be much more specific and I can get a better picture by conversing with them, I almost always have them start with our physical therapist here, because she will put them through an analysis of gait patterns, postural patterns, all of that, to kind of take a look head to toe what's going on. And I feel like that is the most effective way, because that is her realm, like that is her world of like finding where the patterns are going wrong, where there's imbalances, where strengthening could be happening, where soft tissue work needs to be happening. And she will see someone, and then based on her assessment, we'll bring in the other modalities. So we do something kind of unique here. We call it a hybrid appointment. So it is a shortened session with 2 to 3 of our practitioners, where they, for example, see Sarah, it's our PT, for dry needling for 15 minutes. And it's 1 to 2 specific areas that she does. And then they will come to me to help with calming that dry needling kind of response that happens in the body. Your body will sometimes have like a tightening after a dry needling session before it will release. So I will see them for 30 minutes. And then if they would like, they can then go see the chiropractor for 15 to 30 minutes and either get an adjustment or have other things addressed with the chiropractor. So that's just one example. And all in all, it takes the client maybe an hour to see 3 practitioners addressing one issue. The cost is less, because we're only seeing one issue, and we're seeing it for a very specific amount of time. Their time inside our clinic is also lessened, because they're only coming to see us for this one issue, and the time that they've spent here is much less. And we have had so much success with that. Clients have reported feeling like they are getting issues taken care of much more rapidly, and much more, it feels like, effectively, because we're really focused on one thing versus having someone come in and be like, oh, just do whatever, take care of everything. And to address your point, like PR Labs, we're in kind of a special place here in Boulder. Boulder is very athlete centered. And while we are, yes, athlete centered, and we call ourselves a sports medicine clinic, we really are here for everyone. And one thing that I have tried to focus on is also creating a space welcoming everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean just inclusive, LGBTQIA plus, trans, race, age, size, ability, whatever.
Yeah,
we just want you to feel, we're all athletes, and we want to create a space that includes and makes everyone feel like they are important. In Boulder, it can be challenging. A lot of practitioners will focus on the elites and put pictures of the elite athletes everywhere on their website, everywhere in their office. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. I have stayed away from doing that, because I've heard, from being here in Boulder now for 7 years, I've heard that it can be pretty intimidating for quote unquote normal people like myself to come into that space and feel important and feel like they are going to get the same care that the elite athlete's going to be, because they don't see themselves as an elite athlete. So they kind of diminish how they're feeling. So just don't want that. So we really do try to take care of everyone and meet them where they are when they come in. So whether they are injured or whether this is maintenance.
So to bring this out, because it's unfortunately many of these listeners aren't going to be able to visit you. So I really want to kind of leave the athletes with an understanding of how can they take this information and apply it in their lives. So it's like, okay, so what are we, so the point there is when you walk in to see your practitioner, it is a feeling of home, that you belong.
Right.
And if you don't have that feeling right off the bat, if that isn't, then there's others that might be able to serve you a little bit more.
Right.
Thing. I do want to talk about that. And it's like, what is it about? So we've covered the fact that, I mean, it's a phenomenal model. I hope that maybe you could, start having a chain. It's going to be a PR Labs
that is our hope.
Across the country.
Hope.
Yeah. Yes. Because it's a phenomenal model that can and should be applied. And what I want to think about is what is important of your practitioners? What is your practitioner doing that is also unique and able to, I keep on coming into all these interviews and saying, your approach again is not finite. You're not worried about, this is my client.
Not at all.
Really unique and really powerful. And
it's so odd to me, to be honest, Tennille. I've never worked in a space where what you just said, where someone was like, that's my client, and they're like very possessive, where that worked. And I think in the medical world, you cannot. I think that is very myopic. I think that is, it drives me crazy a bit.
And yet very common.
Oh yes, very common.
Right.
I think it's egotistical. It's very egotistical. And I will say, just to answer one of your questions, is the thing I think that sets our practitioners apart is, and this was not, I should note, how we set out to create PR Labs. I was open to all practitioners. I've contacted men and women, but I have to say that we are a staff of primarily women. I would say that out of the 10 to 12 people that work here, 10 of them are women. And not that I think that there aren't men out there that are completely open to this and who have not done the research, but I think there is something that you cannot put a pin in that really sets us apart, because we are females and we are people who we are all going through our own issues with either perimenopause. I'm 48 years old. I am in the depths of perimenopausal stuff, and I have done lots of research for myself, which also then benefits my clients. I've read Dr. Stacy Sims' book. I have it on the shelf here outside. I listen. Dr. Jen Gunter is also a huge advocate. She's amazing. Her last episode with Glennon Doyle on We Can Do Things. Oh my God. I've been listening to it in the car, and I'm just like, yes, I find myself saying yes.
Yeah.
But our viewpoint as women, and we're all dealing with our own stuff. That's, I think, something that sets us apart as well, is that not only do we let it influence how we see our clients, and we come from a place of, is this having to do something with what they're actually presenting with? Is this actually what is going on? Or is there something below this that I need to ask some more pointed questions to help kind of suss out what's going on underneath this? And I think we're a little more adept at kind of, we're great at a rapport with our clients, rapport with like our athletes, that asking those questions and establishing kind of that trust, which I think is very important. And I think that is something that people need to look for when they're looking for practitioners, is do some research, dig around, look at these people, look at their social media profiles, look at their any kind of information you can find about them online, see what their background is. I think that is really important. And if you can reach out and ask questions or fill them in a little bit without, without giving up too much as far as like privacy or security, give them some background of like, this is what I'm looking for. Do you think you're the right practitioner for me? I think that's a great question to ask, because
Mhm.
that gives them the opportunity to say, yes, and here's why, or actually, that's not my background, because we all have
That's
different
correct.
focuses.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. For the let's dig into the perimenopausal athlete and the postmenopause athlete. And is there a need for different recovery modalities? Is one weighted more? Do you find that in the clientele that you're serving, that there's one modality that is coming up in need more than another, or is it always just so individual?
it is very individual. I mean, I think that's the thing that makes it tough to talk about perimenopause and menopause, and I think that's one of the things is we've all known that makes women and women's studies and research on women so difficult, is because there is no like, oh, everybody is like this, or most people are like this. There's
Mhm.
everyone's kind of all over the place because everyone's physiology is different. But I can say that soft tissue work is never usually a bad idea. And I find that that helps so much with recovery. I find that that can be the most one of those things that just, sets people up for success.
Mhm.
Um, that, and I have to say dietary, like getting an RD, a registered dietitian, to help you see if you are fueling enough. I find that that across the board is one of those things that women almost always come out going, I didn't know that, or I wish I would have known that, or I thought it was this and
Yeah.
it's actually that, And so I have to say those two, coupled with a good PT that will kind of help with strength, because as Dr. Stacy says, like strength, especially for perimenopausal women, I hammer it home all the time to my athletes, because here in Boulder, we have a lot of runners, we have a lot of triathletes, we have a lot of cyclists. And I feel like, especially as women get over 35, they need to start looking at strength. And I think that is the scariest thing, because there's been so many myths perpetuated on women over the years that, oh, I don't want to get bulky. Oh, that's going to make me look like a man. That's, I don't know how, I don't feel comfortable in a gym. I don't know what to do. I feel silly. I feel like they're going to laugh at me. People are going to judge me. Um, and I know it is really hard to get past that stuff, but practitioners, I wish there were more, and I think there are becoming more, who are pushing to help women feel much more comfortable. I mean, we here at the office, we're having women's only rookie gym classes, because
Mhm.
it's part of one of my missions, because that is what I have transitioned to over the years. I used to be a runner, and then I was triathlon. And during COVID, I kind of just fell off the triathlon wagon
Mhm.
and was like, oh, I'm done with like being so scheduled, and my Training Peaks, I don't want to open my Training Peaks log today. Please don't make me look at my log.
Yeah.
Um, and so I really found a lot of joy in strength training. And because of my job, it does make me feel so much stronger. I feel great at the end of my day. And I have to say, I just love feeling strong. I love moving heavy shit. And I mean, it just makes me feel
Yeah.
so good. And
Yeah.
it makes me a better cyclist.
Yeah.
I have power when I go up up those hills
Yeah.
around here, and I can go for, longer. And that's one of my pet projects, I guess, is
So
getting women in the gym.
let's I love it. I love that you create that space, but let's come back to the recovery
Okay.
modalities. So how do
Sorry.
you no, it's totally okay. So how do you then encourage women? Like I want people to understand, how do I use recovery? When is it that I need to use recovery modality? Is it always? Is it just when you need it? Is it when you feel broken?
I think it varies. That's my really awful gray zone
Yeah.
answer. I think recovery is something that you have to plan. And I'm sure that as a former professional athlete, you can attest to this, is some people have this very casual relationship with recovery, in that they'll be like, oh, well, I'll run 4 or 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then maybe I'll have like a day off here or there, depending, see how I feel. And I have to say that that is kind of a recipe for disaster, because it's like a lot of things in life. You can't wait for it to happen. You're going to have to take care of it and plan it. So recovery, I tell people all the time when you come in for soft tissue work or massage, that I need to be the thing you do that day. That's it. Like, I need you to not do anything else. Going for a run after a massage, you might as well have just handed me money and just left, because that's about as effective as it's going to be for you. Because
Yeah.
it's just and not to mention, you're not going to have the run you want, or the lifting you want, or the swim session you want after a massage, because your muscles are all like strung out, and they're just not going to perform for you the way that you want. So I think recovery is something you have to plan. I think it's something that you need to base the rest of your training plan around, and I think it's something that you need to be open-minded about. If you want to have one recovery day a week, if that works for you, okay. I will tell you that I think that as we age, I think there has to be two. I don't know if they have to be back to back. They can be, one day and then a few days later another. But I think recovery is such a huge aspect of our training. And I think you can't have one without the other. And
Yeah, no, great. Okay. And so just to kind of summarize, the take-home messages are in terms of how do we look at different recovery modalities. I love that you said the very first step that you have is going to a physiotherapist. The physiotherapist often can really hone in on what are the overall. It's like seeing the big picture before we can really hone in on, okay, actually there looks like some adjustments need to be made. Chiro looks like some soft tissue work is really the issue here. There's some blockages in terms of blood flow or not. So we're going to go see the massage therapist, or kinesiologist, strength trainer. You're lopsided. We need to activate something. Something's not working over there, and you go this way. So your physiotherapist really is, I love it, because I think it really allows people to know where to begin. Is there anything, and just kind of to say, all right, when we don't have a PR labs in our own city, because it's still really unique at the idea, what is the best way for us to advocate for ourselves to take the information from one practitioner to another practitioner? Like, do you want them to write it down? Is it because language matters?
Very much so.
Matters a lot. So what do you recommend there?
I would say asking them for their notes, for their session notes. And that is absolutely, you're right, as a patient, to say, okay, we've worked on this head to toe assessment of me today. You've pointed out this, that, and this. I'd like to have a copy of your notes so that I can then take them to my chiropractor, my sports massage therapist, my dietitian, my personal trainer, and show them that these are the things that I need to work on.
Yeah.
Because trying to relay that information can be challenging. And that's absolutely, I think that's the best way. I love it when clients come in and go, here's what my doctor has said, and they've written it down for me. It's great.
It's super empowering if you also have the experts
physical, yes,
actual notes. Like, we all have phones. Well, I'm assuming most people have phones nowadays. Take a snapshot of what it is that they write down. They often do their charting after an appointment, so they may need to send it to you, but they can do it. Take a phone, send it off, and be able to, you will be empowered with the information that you have. And it's amazing to have in terms of your history. And because we forget, like at my intake form for any of my athletes is extremely long. And it is amazing to me how we forget. We forget things, and we just forget to add in something. So, and then particularly for the athlete in perimenopause and beyond, there's a lot of things going on. And so, equipping yourself with with the knowledge of the various symptoms and understandings of, joint pain and lower estrogen and what might be happening with cartilage and ligaments. And just so as well what's in there. one of the things that I want to just talk about and end off on is, when is it time to say goodbye to your practitioner? And I think it's a really hard thing, because relationships, like they are with coaches, with massage therapists, with whomever, we get really close. And I
Yes.
know for like, I mean, I've come really close with a lot of my practitioners, because it is where we come home into our body
Right.
as well. Right. Like you really emphasized earlier, that it's a safe place, a place where you can come into and feel like you're not being intimidated. You're not trying to be anything other than exactly who you are. And that's really important. And so you're feeling at home. And what if it hurts them? What if I
Mm,
can't leave them? I've been there, 10 years. They know my body like nobody else.
right.
Share with us and guide us how you support your athletes, your clients, to say, look at, you need to keep going.
Right. So I would like to say one last thing about what I feel like perimenopausal athletes, especially women, well, sorry, that doesn't make any sense. What perimenopausal athletes need is, I would also encourage people to get their blood work done. I
Mhm.
think that is incredibly important. And that's another piece of the puzzle that will help them gauge their own progress through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause.
Yeah.
Information is power. Guessing and comparing yourself to another friend of yours. Well, my friend Sally, she's been doing this, and she said, that's lovely. That I love that more women are talking about this stuff. I'm tired of menopause and perimenopause being this thing that we don't talk about, because we've been taught that it's shameful, or we're supposed to keep that to ourselves, because I think that's complete bullshit. Excuse my language.
Mm.
Um, but I think that it is something that women need to, information and like factual information about their bodies is very powerful to have.
Yeah.
As far as saying goodbye, I have to say, in all of my years of doing this, I have had lots of clients who have a very open door approach. Like, yes, we have come to the end of our journey together about these issues that we have been working on. Um, I'm always here for you. If you need anything, if you need a referral to someone else, another sports massage therapist, please contact me. Every we come, it's kind of like that, or that saying that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a reason, a season, or just a span of time.
Mhm.
And or forever, I think is it. I'm sorry, the brain just completely. Whew. Um,
Perimenopause.
Perimenopause.
It's perfect.
Had a moment.
Yeah.
But I that's the way I see our practitioners as well. We're like, I don't know any of us that haven't had people kind of ebb and flow, right? They come in to deal with an injury, and then at the point at which we as practitioners know that there's not much more I can do to help you with this injury, or I think that actually referring you onward to this other practitioner who I think would be very beneficial. Let's talk to them, and let's like get you in with them and see if they can't kind of pick up the baton and keep running with you. And I'm still here if you need me.
Mhm.
But, it's never goodbye. It's just see you later, and I think that is very important for people to keep in mind, because
Mhm.
we're professionals. And yes, it is very sad to see you go, but we're hoping that we'll get to work with you again in the future, especially if there has been that close bonding relationship. And I think that it's, yeah, I think that that's probably the best I can say about
Yeah,
that.
no, I think it's a really, really important thing to hone in on. And the reason being is, because I've worked with so many, many, many athletes, and in with their practitioners as well. It's amazing for me to know the difference between those that are athlete centered and said, you know what, that I think we need to explore something different, that gives
Yep.
me so much more confidence in that practitioner to have the whole athlete in mind.
Well,
And
ultimately, our
so,
goal as
yeah,
practitioners is how
yeah,
you are doing, right? It's not about our ego. It's not about me. It's
and
about, I want to see you succeed, and I want to see you continue on.
yeah, and is something being resolved? And
Correct.
if you are not seeing progress, it can be, you can go into a care, like, massage therapy, there, two different, like there's I am going in to have, a relaxation, blood flow,
Right.
it's a time where I can just really relax, and that's the purpose. There's
Right.
also massage therapy that has a real targeted approach in which I'm looking for a result, and I
Correct.
want to see a shift in the body so we can move better, and
Right.
have freedom of movement, agility, range of motion, whatever it might be. If you are not moving toward and having progress with your practitioner, that you need something resolved, it is time to have that chat.
Right. Oh yeah. And as a practitioner, you should be asking your client each session, how are you feeling today? How are you, what have you been making? Do you feel like we're making progress? Do
Yeah.
you feel like we're, how are you feeling about the care you're receiving?
Yeah.
I ask every time. So there are clients I have seen for years for different issues. And there will come a point where I do ask them every session, how are you doing? How do you feel like we're doing together? How do are you happy with the progress we're making? Because if you're not happy with that, I do have some more either practitioners or steps that we could try to keep moving along.
Yeah.
Because ultimately there should be some like back and forth, like
Yeah.
check in with you.
Yeah. And to not take it for granted. It's a thing for me as a coach. I don't want to take my athletes for granted ever, and that we can continue to be intentional, because your body, especially going through perimenopause and into the beyond, is going to continue to change. It's not the same body. It will never stay
Nope.
static. Your body is not static, and therefore your relationship with your practitioner and your relationship with your own body will continue to change. And therefore, it has to be an ongoing conversation,
Yes.
in my mind, and in yours as well. I have
Yeah.
one more question, unless there's, okay, do you have anything else that you really wanted to say in terms of recovery modalities, and what you want, athletes to know in their relationship with different practitioners and how to use them?
I guess, especially since this is being communicated mostly towards women, I want to encourage everyone to ask lots of questions.
Mhm.
Questions, you should never feel that your questions that you want to ask are ever like your practitioner is like either over it, tired of it, anything like that. If that's the case, move on, find a new practitioner. Um, if something doesn't feel right, if you don't feel like you're getting the care you deserve, if you don't feel like that person's really listening to you, that's a sign, and you need to listen to that. Women, we disregard our gut feelings on so many things so much, and that I have so many clients who come to tell me like, well, I kind of felt like this, but I didn't know. And
Mhm.
go with your gut, listen to your gut, especially as we get older. Whether we recognize it or not, we're able to distinguish between someone who's being authentic with us and someone who's not. And I think we really need to, I would want to encourage women to listen to their gut.
Right. Yeah. I want to say amen. Come on a drink chair. Amen. Yeah, no, we do. And, I had an amazing, and it can be hard to have conversations and to have a lot of
Yep.
courage in them, and to know that,
Yes.
that your voice really matters. My final question I'm asking all experts here, in this series is, was there one moment in time that you really knew that, and I think that I'd like to ask you, from a massage therapy or on the track to do, med school, what was it that really was that, where one piece that you said, no, I need to follow my heart and do massage therapy and find out where that goes?
I had a moment of, I was working in a hospital, and one of the things that made the biggest impact on me was I saw doctors and nurses who I respected and looked up to being dictated to by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. And I saw that these people, these human beings who really their one motivation in life was to help and be there for other human beings, and they weren't being able to do that. Like there was this barrier. You can't do that because they can't afford it. You can't do that because, you know, that's not what we think is appropriate, even though that doctor's or that nurse's gut was telling them that's absolutely what's going to save them. That's absolutely what's going to help them. And I think it was not one instance, it was repeated instances of watching that happen and just watching the angst that those people were going through. And I just saw, I could feel that they were like being so torn. It was like their humanness, their humanity was telling them one thing, and here was this entity that had no idea telling them to do something else. And I had a conversation with one of my mentors at that point and was like, I'm never going to be able to be the provider, the practitioner I want in that system. I'm never going to be able to like be, I guess I had a very antiquated version of what it would be like to be a doctor in my head of, you know, I get to show up to people and like treat them the way I wanted to. And that's really not the way medical practice in the United States works these days. It's very much, there's all these protocols and you have to follow them and you only get so much time with your client. And it just, that didn't sit well with me. And I was just like, it took a while, but I finally got there of like, this isn't the path I think it is. And that was really hard because I was that kid who, since I can remember, I wanted to be Dr. Ripley. I was Dr. Ripley. And that took a lot of tears and a lot of soul searching to go to. And massage definitely was not, I got to tell you, was not the top of the charts for me. I was like, I had someone suggest it to me in a very kind way, like, well, maybe this is a possibility. And I was like, what? That I had a very antiquated mindset about what massage was, because this is in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was never raised with massage. The massage was for ladies who lunch, you know, like this was a very like spa, you know, and I was like, how is that? That is the antithesis of my life. Right, exactly. And so I actually was very offended when I heard that, when someone suggested, I was like, you think so little of me? And then I started doing some research and looked into it. And back in the days of the internet, like there wasn't a lot of information out there, but I did the research and then decided that massage sounded like much more the world in which I could create the world I wanted with massage versus having somebody dictate it to me. Yeah. And that's, I have to say, kind of what has been my path is
it's amazing
massage.
Yeah. And I guess I just want to say too, to that is that massage therapy has changed radically as aligned with how our understanding of the body is and what tissue is and the interconnectedness of tissue and how it actually moves and how nothing is separate. You know, one of my best friends is a massage therapist, and she was just saying, you know, Tennille, like a muscle, we think of it as there's the quadriceps and it's separate. She's like, it's not separate. Nothing is separate. It's all continuous. And so one thing is happening into another. And so our evolution of thinking as you have experience and as you are leading change in terms of how do we do this together in the different modalities is phenomenal. So I thank you for that. And what a great conversation. So thank you so much for coming on, Kate. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Oh, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm really happy to get to talk about all of this.
It's
amazing.
So fun.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And we will catch you up again soon. Thank you.
Yes.